Hi everyone, welcome to Pawpaw's Workshop. Well, I've read through all the comments and overwhelmingly everybody wants to see more of the fan art and the tiling operation. So today I'm going to step it up a notch and show you how to do the tiling and use the two-stage carving and a cutout all in the tiling process. So you don't want to miss out on this. So let's go ahead and get started. This logo was a real challenge to do because I had to do the tiling on both of the halves. I had to be able to do the two-stage carving, and I had to come back and do the cutout, and that would go on both panels. So literally that was 6 different operations to be able to cut out the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. In addition to that, I had to cut out that backer board, and everything had to match perfectly. One of the things that I did to make this more accurate is I actually took the CNC machine and I cut a groove right along this line here. And if you look closely, you can see that this distance from my groove over to the mark on the wasteboard is slightly different. And that shows that not the board's out of square, but the grid was out of square. The machine itself is square, but this grid line is not square to the router itself. So I went ahead and cut this line both on the y-axis and on the x-axis to get it more accurate, because that is critical during the tiling process. I also have a reference line over here that I went ahead and cut in just to be able to have it in case I need it. People have asked about the blocks that I'm using for the spacers, and this is the 1/2" MDF. And one of the things that I did is I wasn't sure how high he wanted to be able to raise the letters off of the backer board. So this gives a 1/2". These are 3/4 inch wide and they're 1 inch long. That way, depending on the sign or what he chooses to do, he can have it sitting this way to have it raised a 1/2 inch. He could turn it up in this direction and give it where it'd be 3/4 inch, or stand it on its end and that would give 1 inch. So that gives 3 different options with one simple little block. Now I'm cutting the top half of this backer board first, and this is at a 20 by 40 by 0.52 inches thick. And I've moved this down. I'm going to zoom in a little bit because I put a little tab so as a reference point, and that is at this bottom left corner, 0, 0. And then I'm going to position, I'm going to zoom back out now. So that's going to be my reference point. This white box actually will cover up the bottom half so it will not carve. And what I can do is just go over here to the shape, and then I want this at the top corner. And the only thing that's really important is that at the y-axis on 0. And that brings it right up to this point. Now with that completely covering the bottom half, nothing will carve. And I can go over here and hit simulate. And you can see it's going to carve straight across and do the cut, and it'll come back. And that's perfect. There's what I'm looking for. If there's any other strange lines that go down into this area, I don't want, and it doesn't. So now let me go ahead and set up the machine and to duplicate this, and we'll be ready to carve. So this point right here is going to be my XY home position. And my wasteboard is, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see that, but that is directly underneath it, exactly at that point, and exactly where these 2 points intersect that I cut on the CNC machine into the wasteboard. And by the way, the bump stops are aligned directly to the line that I carved into the wasteboard. Now the XY 0 point is in the center of the bit, and it's exactly set where it needs to be on the y-axis, and if I rotate my camera you can see it's exactly the same on the x-axis. So that is going to be my XYZ home position for the workpiece. Now I've begun to carve now, and you can see it's starting exactly where it needs to be, right on that point. And it's going to carve all the way around to the other point right on that pencil line, which is the 21 inches. It's critical to take time to get your machine set exactly, calibrated with the way it needs to be. You must have it square to that workpiece, because a very slight variation on your XY axis will make a huge difference on a sign this large. So if you think about it, a 40 by 20 at 32nd of an inch makes a huge difference over that span. Okay, the top half is done. I've slid the board up to my XY home position to that exact point, and now I'm ready to be able to carve. You can see I'm using the tape and glue method. I'm also using clamps. From my background, you know I'm a pilot. I like backup systems. I do not need this to fail. Okay, now that the backer board's in place, it's time to move over to the computer and let's get that set up. First thing I did, I went ahead and moved my white board or my box out of the way. That way it exposes the entire backer board. Next thing I need to be able to do is reference my registration point. I need to move this entire panel all the way up 21 inches. So the easiest way to do it is just go and move and set the X, Y, Z coordinates, and then I'll verify that with my little registration point. That registration point will be 0 and 21. And I'm going to show you this again later in the video. Okay, now it's time to go ahead and carve, and you can see the start point is dead on. That looks really good, and that swings around, and on the other side the alignment ends up being absolutely perfect. Can't beat it. To be able to cut the Ninja Turtles, this is going to be quite a challenge, because what I have to do, not only am I tiling this, but this is two-stage carving. I'm going to be doing a clearing bit using an 1/8 inch bit, and then I'm going to come back and use a 60-degree bit to put in all of the fine detail. And I have to do that in both the top half and in the bottom half. Once that is done, I still have to cut it out. Now here's the other workpiece that actually shows the cutout diagram. So I have to be able to tile this also, and I have to cut out the perimeter of the Ninja Turtles, but I also have to cut out these little cutouts in the center where the different letters are, and that absolutely has to be perfect. If this is off even a slight little bit, it will destroy the entire piece. So again, accuracy is key. Now the artwork for this is centered on the material, but you also notice on the XY axis, the Y axis is set for 0 because I have that little tab, and then the Y axis is at 2.009. So again, what I need to be able to do is move everything down to where that little tab is on my XY 0 point for my home position. So what I'm going to do is keep the x-axis at 0, and I'm going to subtract 21 inches from my 2.009. Okay, I want to verify everything now. I've got it all set up where the top half is going to be carved. The bottom half is covered. I've looked at the simulation. There's no other little bad lines below and out of my table, and that toolpath is kind of crazy. This first portion is going to take 1 hour and 45 minutes at the minimum. I'm going to time this one because it's usually off using two-stage carving. And the other thing, that does not count the actual cutout. So this is going to be a long carve to be able to get it just to this point. But now I have verified the cut depths at 0.06, and I'm using both on my two-stage carving. I'm using my 1/8 inch bit to clear, and then to come back with a detail bit of 60 degrees. Alright, and that's just so you know. Now that 60-degree bit is really designed to catch all of that fine detail in turtles, and it will sharpen up the image also. Because I'm using the two-stage carving, I also have to use the Easel Pro. And this is a screen that pops up. And what I want to be able to do is use a free day. And I'm going to click on that. You have 4 free days a month to be able to do that. So with that box now checked, I can continue on. I am doing the roughing pass. And that is with an 1/8 inch bit. So let's go ahead and probe now. Okay, the probing's complete and I'm starting to cut. Now this time it's starting to cut out all those little pieces first. So I really have to keep my fingers crossed that the XY0 point is exactly where it needs to be. I can't verify that until it actually gets down to that point. So needless to say, I was a little bit nervous doing this carve until it got down to that line and I could verify that everything was lining up. But you can see the progress that's being made, and it's looking really, really good on this roughing pass. Now the other thing that you may or may not have noticed, I'm also using screws to be able to hold this down. And the reason I did that, I wanted to be able to easily slide the board to my new position. And with the tape and glue method, I really didn't like that. So it's glued and clamped. Okay, the first part of the carve is done. This is the roughing pass. Now I just switched over and put in the 60-degree bit, and now I'm going to do the detail pass on this section. So far, looking great. Okay, now it's time to go ahead and carve with the detail pass. So I'm going to go ahead and select carve. And it's asking for the material thickness, secure, and it has detail pass. And I'm going to continue on. I'm verifying that I'm using the 60-degree bit. So that is correct. And now we're just going to go ahead and probe. Okay, let's go ahead and get started on the carving. And you can see again, it's going to start out on those little cutout points. And you can see that the alignment is perfect. It's dropping in exactly where it needs to be, and as it should. Nothing has moved at this point. So the roughing pass, detail pass are going to be great. The real test to all of this is when I switch workpieces and we actually have to do the cutout of this particular section. That is the true test. And I gotta admit, I'm still a little bit nervous to see if this is going to work. But I do have quite a bit of confidence in this because I did my homework. I have everything exactly as accurate as I can possibly get it with the machine. And as a result, I think it's going to work quite well. Stick around, we'll know shortly. I am now in the new workpiece with everything set in place. I have verified the bit, the depth of cut. I've looked at the simulate and run that with no extra carving lines where I don't want them. So now I'm ready to go ahead and do the carve on the machine. Now over on the CNC machine, I have the new bit put back in. This is the 1/8 inch straight bit. Okay, here's the truth. It's actually starting to cut these center sections out. And if you look, it's following exactly where it needs to be. So I'm excited about this now. It's working and I am really, really happy with it. Okay, I don't have to hold my breath anymore. It has finished carving and doing the cutout. And if you look at it, everything is exactly perfect. I am really, really happy. Now, gotta admit, this did take a long time. It took 2 hours for the roughing and the detail pass, and then on this cutting portion, it took another 25 minutes. So the time was long. But now, let's go ahead and slide it down and cut the bottom half. And just so you know, I think it's easier to cut the top half first and then the bottom half. I had to make sure that it was on the correct location. So that is that point, 1.949 on the y-axis, 0 for the x-axis. Now let's go back up here and verify. I want to highlight just that box, and it does read 0 and 21. So perfect. That now is set. This block needs to come up now and sit on top of the top portion that's already carved. And all I really need to be able to do is make sure that it's checked on the bottom, and I will set this at 21 inches, and that will be perfect. So this portion of the carve now is ready when I get ready to do it. So let's go over and do the same thing now to this page. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. So the first thing, we'll highlight it, slide this out of the way, and then I'm going to highlight the entire box, and I need to move this up. Now this time I have this correct, and it's located on the bottom left corner. So I know that my x-axis is 0, my y-axis needs to be 2.009. And by doing that, it moves it right into place. And again, everything must be verified. So I'm going to zoom in, highlight just my marker, my index marker, and it reads 0 and 21. So with that verified now, I'm going to click my box, bring it right up in place. And all I'm just doing is getting it close because I want to make sure that this is set to the bottom corner. And then I will highlight it and type in 21. Boom, just like that. We're ready to carve. Now I have already verified the depth of cut. I know that I'm doing the two-stage carving. So let's go ahead and get the machine set up and start carving. The first step is to move this, and this is my XY home position. So all I'm doing is sliding this down, and I have to line up this corner now directly with that point. So there we go, that is set. So now I'm going ahead and get it attached. Now I'll get it clamped down and we'll continue to the next step. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the roughing pass. I'm not going to bore you with all the details there, but the roughing pass is first, and then we'll move to the next section. Now again, I did screw this down as well as use the clamps. I'm finding that actually works a little bit easier being able to slide the panel back and forth. Now I didn't want to bore you with the roughing pass, so I went ahead and did that. You're looking at the detail pass now, but you can also see that the alignment is perfect between the top and the bottom halves. Now while we have a moment and the machine's just going like crazy, I wanted to give you a little bit of a wide angle shot of the setup that I have. And this is actually working well. I turned my table around a little bit, and later I actually turned the CNC around. So making a few changes. Okay, that section is done. So this particular workpiece now is completely finished. Only thing I need to do now is go over to the other workpiece for the cutout, and with the prep work that we already did, it's ready to be able to carve. So all I need to be able to do is change the bit and carve out this last section, and this portion will be done. Now the bit that I'm using is going to be an 1/8 inch bit, so I have to take my 60-degree bit out of the router, put back in my 1/8 inch bit, and start to carve. So you can see that it's cutting out exactly the way it needs to be. So if you've never done tiling, you ought to give it a try. It's well worth it. Once you understand the concepts and what needs to be done, it's really pretty easy. So here's a look at the finished sign. And one thing I want to point out to you, you can see right in the center of the sign a pencil line that's drawn. That was actually my 21-inch mark, and that's where I did the tiling. so you can actually see the different points all the way across. It aligned exactly the way it needs to be. So what I'd like for you to do is leave me a comment down below if you've done tiling before, if you have questions about how to do the tiling, or any comments that you want to make on this whole tiling process. I know there's very little information out there on the web, and what I want to be able to do is give you as much information as possible so that you can be successful in your shop. Hi everyone, thank you for watching my video today. If you like the video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below and the little bell next to it so you'll be notified on the different videos that I upload. Also, check out the videos over here to be able to stay up to date on the happenings in my shop. So again, thank you for watching my videos.